and the 3 northern regions of Ghana are always among the top 3 worst regions when it comes to nutritional status of children under 5 years. And stunting is a key indicator of chronic malnutrition.
When a child is stunted, it increases the risk of getting sick or even die. And aside of that, it also lessens their intellectual development, which has the consequence that when a child goes into their adult life, it decreases their productivity.
It would be great if we can do close the circle somehow of linking higher productivity with better health, with a better ability to provide labor, and that on its term comes back to leads to higher productivity. The core expertise of N2AFRICA is about raising legume productivity with the right inputs and assessing how this works out at a farm level. I think one of the strengths of the N2AFRICA project is around increasing crop yield, and it's about understanding where legumes fit into the farming systems. I think those are 2 important things that we're focused on. Now, the core of the project is development. I mean, it's a development project, and that's what we want to achieve. We're using this development as a virtual laboratory to do our research. And we do research in all different aspects of legume cultivation, but also the legume chain. We want to understand how, all these different elements come together. How does it work? Why doesn't it work somewhere and it does work somewhere else? And we think this understanding is absolutely crucial to improve development efforts in the future.
I'm a research assistant, and we're trying to find out the effect of the N2AFRICA project on the nutrition of the people in the community here.
I am part of the research team. I have BSc in community nutrition. We are currently in the Boku West district.
Today we are on our way to Boku West district, to one of the villages that we have selected. It's Bolinga today. And we are here to actually see what the potential impact is of agricultural intervention.
N2AFRICA brought in improved seeds upon the traditional legume crops we have. They brought in the erect cowpea type, which otherwise the farmers had a spreading type, which they used to incorporate with sorghum. But now with this one, we plant it at closer spacing and also as a monocrop. And of course, this last one is much shorter than the original crop. So the first economic benefit is it shortens the hunger period between May and June.
As agriculture is one of the mainstay for most people in the world, that's the way to have access to food and increase their income. So actually, the way to contribute to their nutrition, and their way to be able to improve it. Malnutrition has multiple causes. One of them is the access to food. Another one is care, but also access to health and water and sanitation are important factors. It's important that aside of nutrition-specific interventions like nutrition behavior interventions or trying to change behaviors, we also need nutrition-sensitive interventions, in which agriculture interventions is one.
As an agronomist, I would say, we know pretty well that higher labor input, weeding at the right time, planting at the right time, is a very strong factor determining yields. So we know there's a strong relationship there. So then, does higher yields lead to better nourished, healthier people? I think we can do with some more evidence that. And then, does the healthier people lead to people that have ability to provide more labor? It's a good question. I think there are some studies, evidence actually of that entire circle, and that a program can affect that circle. is very scarce because they require very different fields of expertise. I mean, it's even rare in this case that a project focused on legume productivity and increasing the area of legumes actually tries to make that step and to find hard evidence to link that to better nourished people.
So it's important to look at the effect of agricultural interventions on nutrition. And because there is a lack of evidence that actually agricultural interventions are contributing to a better nutrition security of the households, we are now here to look at the N2AFRICA project and how it is potentially contributing and in what way it is contributing.
The core expertise of N2AFRICA is about raising legume productivity with the right inputs and assessing how this works out at a farm level.
MOFA, in collaboration with N2AFRICA, they have brought a lot of experience bearing onto the farmer. In that, we in N2AFRICA introduced this inoculum to farmers, which has actually helped to increase the yield of soya bean. We didn't know inoculum. It's N2AFRICA that brought it. MOFA, we are doing the distribution.
The N2AFRICA project actually helped them actually improve their yield because the kind of training or the kind of education that was given to them as regards the planting, as regards their cultivation, fertilizer application, and as regards their harvest actually helped them improving their yield.
And yield is what will drive nutrition. If yield is good, quantities are going to be more, farmers are likely to eat more and also have more to sell. Usually agricultural interventions are designed mostly not with nutrition in mind. Their idea is that once the food is ready, nutrition is given. You don't have to think about it. But we from nutrition, we think that nutrition should first drive agriculture. You should have in mind what you want to see as a reflection in the population in terms of nutrition before you decide this is the agricultural intervention we want to put in place.
We have selected 2 districts, Boku West district in the north, Karika district more to the south but still in the northern region. We have selected this on the basis of differences in rainfall and on market availability. Then within this district we have selected villages who participated in N2AFRICA, villages who have not participated in N2AFRICA. And we selected the N2AFRICA villages based on that they were already participating from 2010 in the N2AFRICA project. We selected farmers in the end, or the different households within these villages that we had selected randomly from a list of farmers who have received inputs from N2AFRICA. And then for the non-N2AFRICA villages, we selected the villages that were under the supervision of the same extension officer of the selected N2AFRICA villages, so they would be comparable. We used a random walk method. We looked what is the central place of the village, and from there we spin the pen, and the pen was pointing in a certain direction. So, for example, if it was pointing at the right direction and there were 4 houses in that direction, we randomly select one of these houses, and that household was then selected. When we entered the household, it was important that 3 persons were actually present in the household for inclusion in the study. One was an N2AFRICA farmer. For both villages we needed a child to be there, which is older than 6 months and younger than 5 years. And we needed a mother or caregiver of the selected child to be there to answer part of the questions.
My role specifically was to administer questionnaires and then probably help in the taking of the anthropometry. Yeah, so that's basically my main function.
Then we measured height and weight of the children.
We included children between 6 months and 5 years. And with respect to the height measurement of the kids, I think what we used was an infantometer, and that's used in nutrition. When you're talking about height, we are talking about people more than 2 years, and we use length for people below 2 years. Finding out the length of a child who was less than 2 years, and those who stand upright are more than 2 years, and basically that's what we were doing, and that tells us their heights.
My main two objectives are to assess impact and to assess pathways leading to this impact. The impact, I used two different indicators. One is the dietary diversity score, which reflects nutrient adequacy of the diet. We did this by 24-hour recall to the caregiver of the child, the mother, in most cases. Asking what was consumed yesterday, you get a score which reflects the nutrient adequacy. For assessing the pathways leading to impact, we used focus group discussions.
So I've just come to meet the women and then pick some vital information for them for the project.
On the focus group discussion, we tried to find out the experiences of the farmers with respect to the N2AFRICA project. And some of the things some of them said had to do with the nutritional value of legumes, and also they get more income from legumes compared to other crops. And also some had issues with farming practices and what they could do to enhance their farming.
And to see if there was, in what way it would contribute to nutrition. We did this in a qualitative way because, it's difficult to measure quantitatively all the different steps, but to get an idea, this was actually a good method we could use easily in the field. We were also interested in looking how, from the N2AFRICA project, it would go to these indicators in the end. So for this, in literature, many different pathways are described. And from these pathways, I've decided to focus on three main pathways: the food availability for our own consumption, income pathway or via income, and via labor availability. In this food availability pathway, we have the N2AFRICA project as the starting point. Then we have the food availability. That could lead to a higher food intake, and that could end up in a better nutritional status. The second impact pathway we have looked at is by an increase or a change in income. So it was mentioned in the focus group that they used the yield to sell it at the market. It gave a higher price compared to maize. It was a good crop to have to be able to get some more income. And actually, especially the male farmers were mentioning that they were selling most of their yield. It's often assumed that an increase in income would contribute to nutrition. But there are many steps in between in how it could contribute, so it's not a direct link at all. And that gives a lot of uncertainty if it actually reached nutrition in the end. What have come out from the focus group discussion, actually at first that it was quite difficult to ask farmers, where did you spend your income on? Often it was mentioned it was used for pressing needs. Another thing that often money was spent on school fees. Then the last thing that was mentioned was that it was spent to hire labor on their land, and that could end up in a better nutritional status. So actually on the last final pathway from N2AFRICA project to labor availability, I can draw mainly one conclusion in that they say because of the N2AFRICA project there is more work on the land. How that goes on to nutrition, we don't know, or even we were hypothesizing in how nutrition, like if it contributes to nutrition and then back to labor productivity, but that's too far for you cannot measure that by asking actually. I've collected quantitative data and qualitative data. From the quantitative data, which was on dietary diversity and on nutritional status, we have found that there was a difference between the non-N2AFRICA villages and the N2AFRICA villages on the dietary diversity score that we have measured. And it was higher in the N2AFRICA villages actually compared to the non-N2AFRICA villages. Then of course we were interested in what causes these differences, which food groups were different then. and we saw that there was a significant difference between the two villages on the legume, seeds and nuts, and on 3 other food groups. But yeah, the legume, nuts and food groups was about 10% difference between the two groups, which could be because of the N2AFRICA project difference, focusing on legume cultivation, explaining the difference in dietary diversity. Then the effect on nutritional status, actually we find no effect at all. Overall, so we looked at all the children, all the subjects between the N2AFRICA villages and non-N2AFRICA villages, and there was no difference. Then we thought, because for children older than 2 years which participated in the study, they if they were already stunted when the N2AFRICA project was here, you don't expect to be able to change that after the age of 2. So we thought maybe if we look only on the children under 2, we would maybe see if there is a difference there. But there was also no significant difference, but you could see a little bit effect. But we can explain that we have not found anything on nutritional status because it's more a long-term indicator. If farmers have received the inputs just one harvest, you don't expect to have any effect on nutritional status yet. But it could serve as a good baseline in the end to measure impact at a later stage of N2AFRICA again.
So it needs to continue for a longer period before you see it reflecting a nutritional status of these children.
Change always takes time to happen, and that is the difficult thing about it. It can't just happen at the instant.
I've seen the results, and the results suggest that dietary diversity is better. On the surface, we may see that yes, that is it, but is that really the case? If it is improving in Natural N2Africa communities, for me that is a good thing.
They brought in people from Tamale and Kumasi.
Assisted the farmers to produce the crops. They have also assisted in training the women farmers.
Interventions in the hands of women are more likely to benefit the household directly than in the hands of men. But the men, most of them were talking about how they have stored their produce, waiting that prices will increase for them to sell. What the women were getting from their participation in the Nutritional N2Africa project, they were channeling those resources towards paying school fees of their children, towards buying food for their household, towards paying other bills that otherwise wouldn't have been paid for. And they are also preparing other foods with the legumes that they are getting. For instance, they've been taught how to prepare soya milk, how to prepare kebab from soybeans, how to prepare what we call tubani here, how to prepare porridge. They have been taught how to prepare all these things, and that is because they are women. The men do not participate in such workshops where they want to improve the types of food that you can use legumes to prepare. So the more you have women participating, the more you have the households benefiting directly from the proceeds of this intervention.
It's surprising the way they've accepted the change, and I'm sure it's all because of the way the education was given and the kind of training they received and the kind of improvement they've seen.
So it becomes like a cycle that, because of that improvement in one generation, the next generation is benefiting from it. And in so doing, you are gradually shifting as a population from a state of deprivation towards a state where livelihoods generally are improved.
So I think it's very important in general that agriculture interventions should have a nutrition focus from the beginning. Maybe it should even be the end goal as well, because you want to have better food for people.
The project involves quite a number of different expertise from different fields. and gradually we are seeing that nutrition is also getting involved. So eventually you are getting people who matter working together to improve the quality of what is delivered to the small-scale farmers.
I mean, if you have the right partners working on the right elements, we get everything together, and then we expect to have much greater impact. So I have partners in different fields, but I think also some of these partners are more, let's say, development oriented. Some of these partners are actually much more on the research side. You need both of them.
It has to do with the benefits, because if I'm a nutritionist and I work with an agriculturalist and a development person, like somebody who is into development studies or development, of course I'm going to learn from them, and I get better, I become a better person. But however, the challenges has to do with the technicalities involved in each partner's job, and so for me there might be challenges, but with time you can get over them and life gets better. I'm going to talk about health. When you have good drinking water, you can reduce incidence of diarrhea and several other diseases. So for me, farming good, but health, nutrition, and for me, education as well, because they all have bearing. But of course, we cannot neglect agriculture, because if we don't have food, we can go to school. That's one thing. So we need to take care of all that.
Smallholder farmers generally, they drive food production in Ghana. So targeting an intervention towards them is ideal. That's what should be done.
With this project, I've actually been able to put into practice why it is essential or why it is necessary to actually use a particular methodology, and that's how the methodology is actually done. With this project, at least, I saw how it is done, why it is done, and then actually being able to practice how to do it. So this has actually helped me to put into practice some of the theories you probably learned in school. And it has also created some kind of interest into research. Yeah, I think it's lovely. It's lovely. And the whole aim of research to help better the lives of people, I think it's a nice venture to actually go into. Yeah.